Welcome to another module of the HDRN Pragmatic Trials Training Program. Today, we will discuss site onboarding and pragmatic trials and building partnerships for successful trial execution. Good onboarding helps sites understand what's changing, what's staying the same, and how the trial fits into their usual workflow. In the last module, we focused on internal communication within the core trial team. This one shifts outward to external communication with participating sites, making sure the right people at each site are trained, aligned, and supported to deliver the trial as intended. By the end of this module, you should be able to choose onboarding formats that fit real clinical operations, using short, practical approaches that minimize disruption while still building competence and confidence. You'll also be able to communicate clearly, delivering the right information in the right order, managing cognitive load, and reducing confusion that leads to errors, rework, and protocol drift. We'll translate training into role-specific pathways so each person, PI coordinator, clinic staff, data entry, pharmacy, or IT, gets exactly what they need for their responsibilities and nothing that wastes time. We'll focus on practical materials that make training reusable and durable, like site manuals, quick reference checklists, templates, and how we do it here, guides that staff can use after onboarding ends. And finally, we'll address timing and change management, how to plan onboarding around site readiness, handle mid-trial adjustments, and build refreshers so training stays current as staff, procedures, or trial requirements evolve.
Let's talk about choosing the right training format and making sure it's feasible for your sites. One size does not fit all here. You have to match the training approach to real clinical workflows at each site, especially considering how busy the staff are. For example, if nurses in an ICU barely have time for a coffee break, expecting them to attend a long training lecture is not going to work.
In-person training sessions are fantastic for engagement. People can ask questions, you can read the room, it's more personal, so this method of training is preferred. But the reality is, it isn't always feasible to gather everyone in one place, especially across different hospitals or if folks are working shifts. In those cases, virtual training might be the go-to, but you have to work a bit harder to keep people engaged. So you might want to include interactive elements or polls, and sometimes, especially when schedules are tight, you might resort to brief on unit or bedside training, basically catching people for a quick rundown during their shift. These are okay as a last resort and can be effective for simple updates, but we try not to rely on them for initial training unless we have to, because they can be rushed and they provide less opportunities for discussion.
Training time is almost always constrained, so the goal isn't to cover everything. It's to cover what matters most for safe, correct execution. That means prioritizing ruthlessly and matching the depth of training to the minutes you actually have, not the minutes you wish you had. If you have 30 minutes, you focus exclusively on the need to know essentials, what staff must do, what decisions they must make, and what errors are high risk in the clinical context. So, the golden rule is simple. Nice to know information goes into handouts, job aids, or links people can reference later. Need to know information gets limited face time. Now that we have a format in mind, let's talk about the content of the training and how we communicate changes in a way that minimizes cognitive load on staff. This is a fancy way of saying, don't confuse people or freak them out. Seriously, though, we need to be crystal clear about what, if anything, staff actually need to do differently in their day-to-day jobs because of the trial. Feasibility comes down to timing and workload. Schedule training strategically, pick windows when extra staff coverage exists, coordinate with unit managers, and use lunch and learns or short recorded modules staff can watch during quieter moments. At the same time, respect workload. Assume capacity is stretched, try to secure protected in-service time when possible, and offer flexible options for shift and night staff, often by running multiple short sessions rather than forcing a single time that doesn't work for most people.
One really effective strategy is to separate your messaging into two categories. 1. Things staff will notice but do not need to act on, and 2. Things that do require staff action or change in their routine. Clearly calling out, "This is just for your awareness, no action needed on your part," can lower the mental load. Otherwise, if you just bombard them with a bunch of new information, they might assume they're responsible for all of it, which is overwhelming.
On the flip side, When something does require staff to do new tasks or change their routine, we need to make those expectations as simple and concrete as possible. Think step by step instructions, not vague ideas. For example, instead of saying, ensure proper documentation of study activities, say, nurses will need to add one line to their shift notes. That line is, study med given at 8 a.m., nothing more. Boom, that's concrete. They know exactly what to do, and keep the language straightforward. Avoid any ambiguity or jargon that could leave room for interpretation.
Also, avoid implied workload creep. By that I mean don't downplay tasks or hide them between the lines. Clarity builds trust. If participating in the trial means, for example, that a nurse has to fill out a 5-minute survey for each patient, don't frame it as just do your usual documentation and maybe answer a quick question or two. Be honest and clear. We're asking you to complete a short 5-minute survey at end of shift for each patient in the study. It's tempting to sugarcoat it so they won't push back, but in the long run, it's worse if they feel like, I didn't realize I had to do all this extra work.
Use visuals or separate sections in your training materials labeled for your awareness versus action required. Like literally have two columns or differently colored boxes. Under action required, list only the things staff must do. Under awareness, list stuff like you might see X happening, here's why, no action from you.
Now let's move on to role assignment and role-specific training. This is another way to respect everyone's time and sanity. Don't train every single person on every aspect of the trial if they don't need it. The best approach is to assign specific trial responsibilities to specific individuals or roles and then train accordingly.
A common strategy is a two-step training process. First, hold one general session for context, gather everyone, all staff roles, for a short overview of the study. In that session, you might also outline an overview of who will be responsible for what. So they have the initial overview of roles and maybe a one-pager that says who to contact for each trial responsibility. So while we don't train everyone on everything, we do ensure they know the team and the roles. Then, step 2, follow up with role-specific training for the folks who actually have tasks. So after the general introduction, you might have a breakout just for the nurses who will screen patients, where you teach them exactly how to do the screening. Then another mini training for, say, the data entry person on how to use the REDCap database, for example. This approach has some benefits: efficiency, better retention, and accountability.
Next, let's discuss the training materials and tools themselves. How can we support the training with resources that help staff remember and implement what they learned? After all, even the best training session might be half forgotten a week later if there's nothing to reinforce it. Provide written materials, but don't rely on them alone. By written materials, we mean things like a slide deck printout, manual of operations, handouts, checklists, and so on. Remember, the written stuff should complement live training, not replace it, except maybe for very simple procedures where a one-page instruction sheet might suffice. For site onboarding to actually stick, you need training materials that people can use after the live session. Because in pragmatic trials, not everyone can attend, and even those who do won't remember everything weeks later. First, slide decks and handouts should be designed as self-contained reference tools, not just presentation aids. Someone who missed the session should still be able to open the deck and understand the key step, expectations, and what to do if X happens without needing a separate explanation. Think of these as durable job aids: clear headings, concise instructions, and links or appendices for the deeper details. Second, short training videos are a high-impact option when you're teaching a specific procedure or workflow. 2-minute demos work well because they're easy to fit into a busy day. They reduce cognitive load by showing the action rather than describing it, and they double as refreshers for retraining or onboarding new staff mid-trial. Materials do a lot of heavy lifting in pragmatic trial site onboarding because they reduce repeat questions and keep practice consistent over time. First, build FAQs and quick reference sheets from what sites actually ask after the initial training. Capture the recurring points of confusion, then turn them into one-page cheat sheets, flowcharts, or if this, then that, guide staff can keep at their desk. These tools manage cognitive load by giving staff an immediate answer in the moment, without hunting through long documents or emailing the coordinating center. Second, maintain a version-controlled manual of operations. This is the trial's detailed playbook, the agreed process for key tasks, role expectations, documentation steps, and what to do when things deviate from the plan. Keeping a single master version ensures consistency across sites and makes onboarding new staff mid-trial much easier because the reference doesn't live in someone's memory, it lives in a stable, maintained document.
Let's pause for a minute and unpack what actually goes inside one, especially for pragmatic trials. Because when people hear the word manual, they sometimes imagine this giant dusty binder that no one ever opens. In pragmatic trials, the MOP is the bridge between the protocol and real clinical practice. The protocol explains what you're doing and why, and the MOP explains how the study actually runs day to day across busy, real world sites.
Now, let's say, despite our best efforts, a change does occur mid-trial. Maybe the way data is collected changes because a tech system got updated. How do we manage that? The first step is to acknowledge openly that plans have evolved. Don't try to slip in a change quietly and hope no one notices. It's better to communicate out. And when you explain it, be clear on what changed and why. After announcing the change, follow up with site-level clarification, preferably in person, or at least via a live call with the staff involved. An email announcement alone might not cut it, especially if it's a significant change. Don't forget to update your training materials to reflect the change, and redistribute those as needed. If you have a study manual, issue a new version or an addendum. If you gave them a cheat sheet that's now outdated, send a revised one with "updated" in bold. When changes happen, a little empathy goes a long way. Recognize that it can be frustrating for staff. That kind of tone shows respect for what we're asking of them. If they feel respected, they're more likely to roll with the punches. And as we already discussed, try to limit how often you make changes that affect sites. If there's a tweak every week, people will start tuning out those emails or updates.
Last but not least, when we do see the need for a refresher training, we should do it in a way that's helpful, not punitive or burdensome. You don't want sites to feel like, ugh, another training session because we messed up. Frame it positively. We're offering a short refresher to help everyone with X. Maybe it's just a 15-minute review in a staff meeting, or a quick new demo of a process if there was confusion. Be mindful of not overburdening sites with constant training. Use refreshers judiciously. Focus on the areas where you see clear evidence of confusion or error. Also, empower your site champions or coordinators to let you know when they feel a refresher would help.
These are the 6 main takeaways from today's module. 1. Meet sites where they are. Effective training fits into the clinical workflow rather than disrupting it. Choose training formats that each site can accommodate, ideally in person for engagement, virtual if necessary, or quick on-unit briefs as a last resort. Always respect the time and workload of clinical staff by keeping sessions focused and appropriately short. 2. Keep staff burden low with clear messaging. When introducing trial procedures, make it crystal clear which aspects require staff action and which do not. Reassure staff when their work isn't affected, and when it is, give them simple, concrete tasks with no ambiguity. This clarity reduces cognitive load and anxiety, letting them integrate the trial into their routine as smoothly as possible. 3. Right info to the right people. Tailor your training to roles. Give everyone a big picture overview so they understand the trial's purpose and who's responsible for what, but then train individuals only in the tasks that they will personally perform. This role-specific approach makes training more efficient and ensures each person is confident about their duties. No one is overloaded with irrelevant details and nothing is left unassigned. 4. Reinforce with good materials. Back up your training with well-designed support tools, slide decks that double as reference guides, one-page cheat sheets, frequently asked questions, short videos, and a solid site manual. These materials should be easily accessible and kept up to date. They'll serve as memory aids and onboarding tools for new staff, ensuring consistency over time. 5. Plan, then train, and adapt transparently. Try to finalize your trial processes before rolling out training so you're not teaching a moving target. But if changes do become necessary, communicate them promptly and clearly. Explain what's changing and why, update your materials, and if needed, retrain or personally brief the site staff on the new procedures. This honesty and follow through maintain trust and compliance. 6. Provide refresher and support as needed.
All right, that's a wrap for today. In future modules, we will talk about communication between sites and principal investigators and other partners more. Thank you for listening. If you found this content useful, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss new modules.